Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm assuming you know me. My name is Amanda Ryba. I am the founder of the Illuminate Your Wealth community, and I'm very honored and excited to introduce you to my special guest, this gentleman to my right, possibly your left. His name is Mr. Bryce Fransen. Him and I have been working alongside each other for about the last year or so in business, and we got to talking. I saw him on a company trip over in Cabo, and we got
Yep.
to talking and learning a lot about each other and our past and what we've done. And he is an expert when it comes to mortgages, the real estate industry. He's been in finance for over 14 years. He now runs his own branch on the mortgage side, and he has just a wealth of knowledge on what it takes for a client getting into that space, as well as what it takes for agents to thrive and be successful in that space, and also helping them figure out ways to add more value to their clients, right? We all want to do that. So if you
Mm.
can please help me welcome up and introduce Mr. Bryce Fransen. Bryce, tell us a little bit about you.
Jeez, I appreciate the introduction, man. Yeah, it has been like a couple of years or so now. It's kind of crazy to think about, but no, I appreciate the introduction, and it's a freaking pleasure to be here. I know we've been talking about this one for a while, kind of putting
We
this together
have.
and just joining forces and throwing some good nuggets out there. So, as you guys know, my name is Bryce Fransen. I used to be known on social media as the lending giant. That was my brand for years and years and years. You can't tell here because we look like we're the same height, but I'm about 6'9". I think Amanda's like 5'4", maybe, right? I
I
don't
told
know.
him to put his head at the same height as mine so that I don't look like a midget. I'm like, no, make your head the same height as mine.
Exactly. But no, it's
And I'm on
exciting.
a stool, by the way, to be the same height as
Yeah,
you.
I'm standing at my desk in the office, but which my wife actually just recently painted the green for me, which I
I
love it.
love it.
I was on a guy's trip, and she was like, "Hey, I'm gonna take care of that," and I was like, "Whoa!"
Nice.
So it was awesome. But yeah, like you said, about 14 years in the financial services space. I mean, I've started all the way down as being a teller in banking, worked my way up through corporate management, been a more of an executive position and leadership roles, and did a lot of that by my early 20s, mid 20s even, and then I kind of started looking ahead of people, and I didn't really like any of the results they had. Right, and I don't just mean like financial results. I meant like most of them had relationships that had fallen apart. They didn't have time. They didn't have all these things. And at the time, I didn't really know what it was that I was looking for, but I knew it wasn't what they had. So I did what anybody smart in the banking industry does, and they get into mortgages, right? So I got into mortgages and started helping people with purchasing their first home, maybe an investment property, just getting really really strategic, and done that for years. And then recently, in the last couple of years, we actually, me and my sales partner, my business partner on the mortgage front, we started our own team because we realized there was a massive gap in leadership in this industry. There was no values in this industry. There was nobody that really cared in this industry. It felt like, right, and so it said, hey, let's go ahead and change that. And so we founded a branch. And what's exciting about the team inside the mortgage space was that we actually adopted really, really, really heavily the core values of GFI, Global Financial Impact, right? The five fulfillment formula, those five F's. And so when I was recruiting and kind of building my initial team, I said, look, my goal is to help you be better in all these areas, right? Your faith, your family, your finances, your fitness, and your fun. And kind of explain that everything of that is different for everybody. And I think that that was really an attraction piece for a lot of people that we have kind of in our team at this point, and just a little bit more, a little bit bigger, right? We know the awesome guy, Mr. EO. He talks about, hey, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And
Mhm.
so we wanted to create something in the mortgage industry that no one else has done. Right. We wanted to create an impact that wasn't really possible without combining resources, without taking the best of the best, and actually kind of bringing it into a space that needs to be revamped. Right. The mortgage and
Mhm.
real estate industry. There's a couple companies trying to redo things, but you really like it really needs to be done. Right. So it's been exciting. It's been a heck of a journey. I'm out here in Arizona now. I'm originally from the Bay Area, so I was in your neck of the woods, but it's okay. You're coming out here anyways at some
That's
point,
true.
so which is awesome. But yeah, so it's been awesome to kind of lead the team and the guys that we have on our shit at this point.
I appreciate you for sharing all that. And I know that the real estate and mortgage industry is one that people always have had an interest in, right? I know a lot of people in my field that have come from that background. I have a lot of clients that come from that background. And I obviously have a lot of clients that are looking to purchase homes and get into
Yeah.
real estate as a primary, real estate as investment property. So
Yep.
I'm curious kind of your take given, and I know you guys, you don't look like it, but I'm talking 14 years of experience. Like that's a significant amount of experience in the financial services industry, significant amount. And he is like a foot and a half taller than me, and his wife. And
Yeah.
so he's a wealth of knowledge. So as we talk today, if you have any questions, you are obviously welcome to ask those in regards to the topic of conversation today. But I'm curious your feedback on this. Like,
Yeah.
obviously we're all hearing different things when it comes to the real estate industry, like
Yeah.
what's going on in the industry from a perspective of a client like trying to
Mm,
get into purchasing it, but
right.
also from the perspective of an agent that's working in it.
Good question. You know, it's a loaded question for a lot of people because it's such a specific kind of situation for everyone's scenario. I mean, there's been times where it's been very obvious it's the right decision for someone to go buy a piece of real estate,
Hmm.
get into an investment property, buy that vacation home. But there's been plenty of times where it's like, this is not, this ain't the time, right? And so I think what's interesting, what's going on kind of inside of the mortgage and real estate space is back in, we'll take a quick step back. Obviously, there's a ton of history in mortgages and real estate, but 2020 obviously was crazy. You had the start of the pandemic. And so all that stuff was going on, and mortgage rates dropped and plummeted like crazy, right? Feds lowered the interest rate, shouldn't have done that for as long as they did, which caused this frenzy, which means we basically had real estate skyrocket in value and mortgage payments stay super low. And so what we've dealt with really the last like 18 months, it's still happening. It's crazy. I actually look at interest rates right now. People are like, oh, rates are up, rates are down. I'm like, look at the linear line. They're actually pretty much the same from November to today. Like they pretty much match to what they were in November. And what's crazy is the goal is to really help people just put together the best financial plan. So when we sit down with someone, I say, look, the most important piece to you is like, you have to understand what your payment is. Who cares what the interest rates are, right? But also understand that statistically, right, real estate does go up. I mean, in the long term, and it's going to get harder, I think, to buy it. Middle class America is going to be way more difficult. We talk about the three rules of money in a lot of our financial education, and one of the things I talk about is this rule of 72 compound interest. I say, hey, if you buy a piece of real estate, think about it. It's a variable asset. It's probably the best variable asset you can get into, in my opinion, right? It's highly leveraged in your favor, but it is still variable. But it's going to usually do about 4 to 10%, depending on the market, depending on the appreciation, so many factors. But let's average it. That means that that piece of real estate will typically double every 10 to 20 years, right? So, which is crazy when you think about it like that. But it's also, hey, like you got to understand the payment. So, what's crazy is that we really look at kind of understanding the fact that payment is the most important thing. We can't control interest rates. We have payment strategies. Like we get clients in rates that are 2 or 3% lower than market, right? It's kind of like tiered strategies to help them win short term and long term. So at the end of the day, it's putting together the thing that works for you. How much money do you have to spend, and what payment do you have to shell out every single month to have that home, right?
Hmm.
But most people understand that right now is probably an interesting time. It's probably a little more expensive to buy in some cases than it is to rent. Depends on your market though, right?
Sure.
Bay Area, that could be totally different. We're in Arizona now, right? Arizona used to be one of the cheapest states 5 years ago. It's now top 10 most expensive state to live in, right? So it just ebbs and flows. So the goal is just sit down with a professional that'll teach you, that'll educate you, and that'll put something together that actually gives you education. My biggest pet peeve is people, hey, I want to get pre-approved. They submit an application and someone gives them, you're pre-approved X loan amount. That doesn't mean anything. There's probably 3 to 6 different scenarios and strategies that actually need to be shown to that person, depending on level of like what they want to know. I want to be at this payment. This is what I want to do. We can do that. Perfect. What's important? Because think about it like it's an emotional transaction too. It's
Hmm.
money, it's a home, but are you going to be there for 5, 10, or 15 plus years? Right?
Right.
Depending on the timeline you think that's going to be in that, that's also the key, right? It's really crucial. If it's going to be a 2 to 5 year strategy, that's different. I'm thinking about that differently than if you're going to be there for 15 plus years, right? Because you got kids about to go into middle school or high school and different things like that. So it's so unique to each person that it's just one of those things that we really have to look into. It's a valuable asset, but at the end of the day, too, it's a home. Like, you're
Mhm.
gonna create memories there. I remember the house that I grew up in, my parents have been there since, like, 1977, right? So it's like, that's crazy to think about. They've been married for almost
Yeah,
50 years, right?
that's
And so it's like,
crazy.
when you think about that, like, that's just home. And so what's more important is the fact that, they bought a house for $200,000 that's worth about 3 million now. So yeah, over time, of course, the house will continue to compound up. But I think the most important piece is it's very, very, very specific to each person, each strategy, each situation, and everybody's timeline.
Yeah. What about from an agent perspective? Like, what are you seeing uh agents going through? Because if home sales are down, which, I mean, you can comment if they are or not. I've been
Hmm.
told that they are. If home sales are
Yeah.
low, does that mean that agents that are in that space are obviously working less, making less? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So there's absolutely been a shift in the market, whether it's agents or loan officers. We've seen anywhere between 30 plus percent of individuals lapse. I know that in 2022, three, like, we had about 30% of all loan officers licenses. They didn't renew them, right? Real estate agents, depending on the state, don't renew them
Mm.
because the sales is really down. And it's not so much because they're down, like, there's still tons of volume happening. Don't get me wrong, right? It's not a scarcity mindset. It's just, think about it, right? There's a reason 89% of people in this profession or in entrepreneurship in general don't make it past 3 years, right? Because there is a limited amount of inventory, and we have the lowest amount of inventory we've had in a very, 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 very long time. We also have the highest amount of demand, right? And so for most people, it's got to be focusing, I think, in my opinion, on a very specific, like, sphere of influence, a market that you're a part of. Like, you have to be very community focused, right? If you really want to make an impact. I think the best thing is you also have to expand the value add, right? Just candidly, and I love my real estate partners and I respect everyone in this industry. Don't get me wrong, but you can't just move the real estate transaction anymore and that be it. Like, I really don't think you can do that because we're having a lot of these discount brokers and things like that come into play. And unfortunately, people look at the bottom line a lot over relationships, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of innate human nature sometimes. They don't want to pay more for something they don't think is more value. Do I think there are agents that deserve the 4, 5, 6%? Absolutely. Right. But it's not always going to be the case. So I think for an agent, the most important thing is having partnerships with community and relationships. Right. They did a study on real estate agents and professionals in general. They said that on average, every real estate professional averages 2 relationships that have legitimate referral. That's it. Like, if you want to have
That's
an actual
it?
thriving business, yeah, two. That's average. You have 2 referral partners that work with you, right? It's like, and because of that, because think about it, there's million plus real estate agents, right? There's not even a million listings. There might be about a million listings right now. I'd
Oh,
have to look at the stats. I didn't look that up, so don't quote me on that. Somebody will slaughter me in the comments, but that's okay. But like, the main thing that comes up is you have to have more value propositions than just the real estate. It's just a piece of it, right? What if you have, now you got to think of all the services that go into it. There's HVAC, plumbing, painting, like, those are the ecosystem you have to create to really be a value proposition. It can't just be, well, I show at a discounted price. I don't
mm,
think anyone should discount their value, but if you think you should, then you should probably just increase your value first. So,
mm,
relationships and community, like,
yeah.
hands down, that has to be the number one thing I believe is the only way to move forward. You can't compete with some of the really big guys in the industry when it comes to buying leads, because they have billions and you probably have hundreds, right? So it's just
Right.
not, you can't really compete in that aspect. And I see this day in and day out on real estate pages that I follow, I'm a part of. Thousands of real estate agents are, can't get leads here, too expensive there, where are you getting deals, how is it working? Like, it's a
Wow.
problem, right? I'm like, you just don't have relationships. You need a relationship.
That's Well, that's what it boils down to, right? Is that's an industry where it's most likely the largest purchase middle class Americans will make in their entire life, right? Is purchasing a home. And then
100%.
maybe an investment property, but usually primary residence, largest purchase. And me being on the finance side and helping people save for whatever their goals might be, short term, mid term, long term. That usually tends to be one of them if they're not a homeowner.
Yeah.
Uh, that's a reality. Is they're looking for, property, and they're always looking for connections to people. So I know, for example, in my role, right, I have connections to real estate agents all across the country, because
Hmm.
that's the other thing that I tend to find in that industry is you're kind of territorial strapped. Like, yeah, you can send
Correct.
referrals to other places, but let's be real, like your network of people is local. Like, it's not in other cities, it's
Yep.
not in other states, it's local, versus
Yep.
other industries where they can work more on a, I don't want to say global, but like, US wide basis. You can start to build referral sources in other cities and other states. So, ironically, I don't know if I told you this, I had gotten connected over to a lady that she is a real estate agent, and she was actually looking at taking her life insurance exam. And she got
Yeah.
connected to me just as somebody to help her study for that. And I'm like, well, why are
Right.
you looking into doing that? Like, what's the interest?
Right.
And she's like, well, I've always been interested in it. I'm like, yeah, but you're in real estate. Like, aren't you busy enough? Like, why are you interested in it? And she's like,
Mm.
well, because our industry is a little slower right now and it goes hand in hand with what we do. And I'm like, oh, I'm very surprised that you picked up on that. Because a lot of
Hmm.
times it's not picked up on, right? But
Hmm.
you're right. Like the original thought is HVAC, the plumbing, the electrical, like you need referral partners for that. But what about the insurance industry, right? Why do you think that would be a good opportunity for partnership?
Well, I think you kind of nailed on the head on the first part, right? It's the
Mhm.
largest financial transaction that the average human in America is going to ever have, right?
Mhm.
And so when you think of that transaction, that's one of the things that right our team runs, and obviously we're partnered together on the finance side because of this, and we started a movement called More Than a Mortgage, right? And the idea was that hey, like if you're going to partner with people, they talk about all the time is what about being impact? And so I said, man, I got really, really tired. There was of the kind of the ebbs and flows of real estate. Don't get me wrong, I love what I do in the mortgage side. I have a team, we have great resources, we have great customer service, we do a really, really, really good job. But I said, at the end of 22, I remember one day I lost out on $40,000 worth of commissions. I had 4 or 5 deals fall out. I had agents yelling at me for things I knew I couldn't control. And I was like, this is really what I'm going to do for the next 25 years? Like, you got to be kidding me, right? And so I ended up calling a mentor of mine, Mr. Flo, and I just vented to him for about 45 minutes. I didn't talk to the guy, I remember at that time, in 4 months. And so you got to sit down, see what we do. Perfect. What I started to realize was, holy cow, the level of education that's missing. That's the number one thing that we have to help with, right? Most people don't understand the rules, right? If you want to go buy real
Mhm.
estate, if you want to go do anything, right? If you want to go open a business, what are you going to do? You're going to go learn about the business. You're going to go learn about the rules of how to do that properly, successfully. What we don't teach in America, unfortunately, is the rules of financial success. We
Yeah.
don't, right? And so we don't even teach people how to buy a house. Like we don't teach any of that. And so if we figured out, hey, if we could add that in, we could add in financial education and teaching people how to actually know how to understand money, how to win in money, then it would be a massive win for them. And so when you partner with that, you're already looking at everything, right? The real estate professional, some of them might not get this opportunity as much as the mortgage side, candidly, just because we look at all the numbers, right? When we're on a loan, we see everything. We see the income, the credit, the assets, the debts, the pros, the cons,
Absolutely.
the negative, and we see everything because you can't go get a $500,000 loan and hide the fact that you don't pay your bills. Doesn't work, right? Doesn't work. So it's been really exciting to kind of add that in. And I think it's an absolute must, right? And the other piece of that is, are you being transformational or are you being transactional? Right. And so that was
Mm.
something that really has always irked me because I care deeply about the people that I serve. And so does all my team. I know that's a big piece of us, but there was only so much you could do. Statistically, about 18% of all real estate clients that you serve will use you for the second transaction. 18%,
Mhm.
right? So that's the case. That means I have to go literally 5x my business every year just to maintain the same repeat business, which is crazy to think about. I said, but what if when you hand them a house, you could help them with their estate plan conversation, right? What if you
Mhm.
handed them a house and their estate plan conversation, you could protect it to make sure if anything happens to them, they have insurance in place, right? I use this example where it says, hey, if you own a house, you have homeowners insurance, there's a leak and it leaks over time, over time, over time. Eventually, it's going to be mold, right? It's going to be nasty, it's going to be gross. And you could consider that to be like cancer, right? You don't know it might be happening, but maybe it is happening in your body. Or there's something that happens, or you slip and fall, and you're not able to provide for your family. You can't pay the bills. We want to replace
Mm.
that. We want to make sure that the asset, the house, is an asset, not a liability to that family, right? So the house, the estate plan, the insurance, the understanding that, hey, they're going to protect all this. Why don't you protect you? Why don't you protect your money? Why don't you never lose, right? Understand that you can get to where you want to be. You just have to know how to play in the same rules that everyone else is that's winning.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think that's a lot of times where, like we said before, adding other sources of um, value, but also including other sources of income for yourself. Because
Yeah.
especially when times when the market is a little bit slower, and that's when, like you said, you start to see exits of real estate agents out of the
Hmm.
industry. Maybe instead of them exiting the industry, they just look for ways to add more value to clients. They get a little more creative. They start to think outside the box. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, how can I make myself stand out, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things I love about the insurance and investment industry, which is the one that I work in, right, that we're partnered through, is there's never a bad year. When the markets are up, people want to save and invest. I'm back. I'm back. I was like, did I freeze for a second? But yeah, when the markets are down, people want to protect and preserve. So we're
Yeah.
always busy. Like there's always something going on here. And
Hmm.
like I said, like I will always pitch it to my clients. Like if you're looking to buy a house, and you can correct me on if this is or isn't wrong, but you know, I was always told that it looks good if they have some sort of permanent life insurance in place when they're going to get these big mortgages. And if anything, it's just a bonus to have it. Like it's not a bad thing to have it in your portfolio because
Hmm.
obviously it looks to the banks and the mortgage companies like, hey, we're going to get our money back if there is permanent life insurance inside these portfolios. And like you've said, it's it's not an asset until you've got it protected and you have the ability to make sure that that's not going to leave a liability to your family if you were to pass away. So.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's obviously the component of adding more value, right? I don't remember who said it, but basically, you get paid in direct proportion amount of people you help, the amount of problems you solve, right? So
Mhm.
if you want to make more money, you add more value to the marketplace. So help more people, solve more problems. And I think that's become a conversation where I go to a lot of my past clients now. We're educating them all these stuff, and it's actually impressive how many people are looking for that information, are looking
Mhm.
for that insurance. Or we just had a couple, we had a situation that happened. This is really sad, unfortunately, but our clients made an offer on a house in Northern California. The other person won the house, so we didn't get the house for them. So we continued on. This was a husband, a wife, and an 8-year-old daughter. And what was crazy was the husband and wife went on an international trip right after they closed on the property. And the husband made about $400,000 a year. Wife didn't work, right? And so at that time, unfortunately, the husband passed away from a freak accident, right? They just closed on this property. There was no trust. There was no life insurance. There was nothing in place to protect it. And so we got a call about 6 weeks later, said, "Hey, will you guys buy this property back?" We're like, "What? Why?" And so we got this story told to us. In my head, I was just like, this is the worst situation that could ever happen to that family, right? The husband and wife think they just started creating memories. Their daughter's about to go to a new school. Like they're about to create everything that they've ever wanted. And $4 million over the next decade just vanished from that family's portfolio of income. Right now, they have to leave. They have to sell the house at a loss and go move in with her mother in law and now figure out what to do. And so the only thing that comes into play there is, what if someone had actually had the right conversation with them? What if that loan officer actually knew how to say, hey, as you're getting this asset, let's make sure it's protected, right? Let's make sure that you're protected. So if anything happens, right, you can have a 30-year mortgage, let's make sure you are protected for 30 years, right? Obviously, you can never replace the loss of a loved one. And I lost my mom in February. So I know exactly what that feels like. But at the end of the day, like, if that family had gotten $4 to $6 million in tax-free insurance money that paid out due to that freak accident, there would be a lot less stress when it came to maybe keeping the house, paying the mortgage, putting the daughter in the best school, giving her the best life that you possibly could. But no, it was completely uprooted, literally because we just didn't have one conversation. So those,
Mhm.
you can hand this $500,000 or $1 million loan, but it's actually literally just putting someone in debt and not giving them an opportunity to put their family in the best position possible. And so that's been one of the biggest things. And of course, along that journey, because we add more value, we get paid. And so we call it our more than a mortgage, right? For example, actually, just this week, what's today? Thursday. So
Hmm.
on Tuesday, one of the guys on my team made $47,000, and it wasn't from a paycheck from mortgages, right? And it was on one client situation that he helped. The client he's talked to, he known him really well. They have a loan that we should be doing, but what's crazy is it didn't make number sense to do that. But what did take sense was to educate them on some other things, other services, and details that they needed around their financial picture. And this family ended up having a couple $1 million from a crazy accident he had in construction, and he had a huge insurance payout. So we
Oh
took
my
insurance money from an accident
God.
payout. We just funded strategies that will create generational wealth for kids on kids on kids. And my teammate actually got paid about $47,000. Like that's some pretty powerful stuff, and a
That's
little bit more
powerful.
important at times than just here's a loan, right? Let me make sure your family's in the best position possible.
Yeah, wow. And I mean, that probably never would have happened for that family had you guys not had the knowledge and the partnerships and the mindset to go and add more value to your clients, right? So, in my
Correct.
opinion, which I'm sure you would agree, I feel like uh, people in all industries, but specifically the real estate industry, because you have access to so much financial data on people, you
Yeah,
really are doing a disservice by not connecting them, either connecting them to people that can help in other capacities financially, or you getting the knowledge so that you yourself can go out there and educate them on other things that they can do. Because any
100%.
normal real estate agent or mortgage person would probably take a look at their finances and just focus on the mortgage and not
Correct.
look at that and be like, yo, that's awesome. Like, how can we help you stretch that and create generational wealth for your family for the rest of your life, in addition to getting the house? Let's also protect it. So now you're taking a look at it holistically. And how
Very.
can we help you from a holistic perspective, just from, oh, let's just churn and burn and sell mortgages, right? Like,
Yeah.
and same thing in my industry too, where it's like you see a lot of people, they'll just churn and burn and they'll just, they'll sell insurance policies, or we
Yeah.
call it slinging, right? Like, they'll be slinging the insurance
Yeah.
policies or whatever. But that's
Yeah.
why I make it so important that my team understands from a holistic perspective all the
Right.
different areas we can really help and we can really make an impact. And now I don't have a real estate license, but I have a lot of connections to people like you and other folks that do, and I can refer
Mhm.
that and make sure that I know, okay, if you need this person, I've got this person, I've got that. CPAs, right? Tax professionals,
Right.
all of that stuff. So really the whole point of this live today, guys, is to get you to think a little differently if you're part of that industry, because you really do have the ability to provide some significant value to people financially, because you just, again, you get to see so much about them when they're opening up their portfolios to purchase these homes. So we want to
Mhm.
encourage you, if you are in the industry, to either have a conversation with myself, to have a conversation with Bryce about what it might look like to get educated on maybe what we do on the finance side, so that you can provide some more value, whether that's through insurance products, through annuity products, through
Mhm.
so many college funding, all the different things that you can do with the portfolio that's already in your hands. It's so easy, right? So, and is there any conflict of interest with that?
Not unless you work at a bank for the most part.
Mm.
Absolutely not, right? It's you obviously can't work for like one of the big guys, but at the end of the day, like I think either way, we have once you know something, you have a moral authority to go share it, right?
Yeah.
You have a moral authority to go help that person and go talk to
Mhm.
that family and be the best that you can be for the people that are in front of you that are trusting you with anything and everything when it comes to their future.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, as we wrap up today, I would love for people to be able to connect with you, Bryce. What is the best way for them to reach out to you if they have questions about this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, the most common place I'm going to be is going to be on Instagram. It's going to just be Bryce_Fransen, which is BRYCEFRANSEN, or you can take a look at the flyer while they're there. But that'll be the number one place that people can reach out to me directly.
And I'll also have his information linked in the description of this video below. So I recommend you reach out to him, you follow him. Wealth of knowledge, again, when it comes to this. So if you're working in the real estate space and you want to get connected to somebody that has done it and has made that shift and now is, more than a mortgage, and really being able to provide a lot of value to his clients, you got a guy right here. Or if maybe you're a client looking to get into the real estate space, whether that's from purchasing your first home, maybe getting into investment properties. Him and his team are based in Arizona, but can you work with clients in other states, or are you guys mainly Arizona?
We're about 30 states. Yep.
Wow. Okay, check that out, guys. 30 states. I'm sure that's all on his profile. So when you guys go to his page, if you're a client, connect with him. I've worked with this guy for a long time. I trust him. As you can tell, extremely knowledgeable young man in the business space. And Bryce, we're just so very grateful for your time today. Any last words before we sign off?
I appreciate it. No, I obviously I know we could probably spend hours on this going through all kinds of different things. So just dropping some awesome information and just letting people know at the end of the day, like, look, they gotta think differently. So I appreciate your time. Obviously, it's been awesome. This is freaking amazing. We got an amazing engagement, and just excited to help more and more people elevate their business in the real estate mortgage space.
Let's do it. I'm down. Cool. If you guys like this, let me know. I might be able to get them back here maybe in the next couple of weeks. This video will be saved so you can go and check it out later and share it with anybody you know that's in this space, you guys, because they're the ones that can make a big impact on people's lives financially. So, Bryce, again, we appreciate you. Thank you taking time out of your business and your family to be with us this evening. And everybody, we are signing off. We'll see you again next week.